If you think you've got a tough life, wait until you see how hard our protagonist has it. After being exposed as an Ajin, he has to be on the run from a constant manhunt. With police and criminals alike after his huge bounty, the series never gives him a break from constant violence. Episode 1. Welcome to Ajin, where currently we are in the middle of a full-scale war. Even after using their guns, it appears whatever the government sent is immortal. One man steps up and shoots a bazooka at the guy, but it clearly had no effect. While one of the members attempts to flee, the boss threatens his life, telling him he will either die by the enemy's hand or die by his hand. Proclaiming to himself he killed God, the boy overlooks the immortal soldier as he gets back up after being sprayed by an AK. In a turn of events, a new group approaches, tranquilizing the soldier, making him immobile. I wonder what that soldier was and how he affects the overall story. Introduced is Nagai, our protagonist of the series, hoping to complete his preparation for his upcoming entrance exam tests. He assures his mom she can count on him, and he leaves, prepared to go to school. As Nagai walks down the street, he notices a friend of his, Kai, but he calls him a freak while in front of his group. They ask him if he's an Ajin, calling him a freak once again. The professor explains what an Ajin is, an immortal being that was once confirmed 17 years ago. He refers to them as soldiers of God, them being invincible. Currently, 2 known Ajin exist within Japan, and only about 50 in total. While on the topic of Ajins, one of Nagai's classmates asks if there is a big bounty for the capture of an Ajin. Nagai asks his teacher whether Ajin are human, laughing to himself after his response. While riding on the train, Nagai watches one of the Ajin experiments that the government has done. Nagai remembers his past memories, not being saddened at all when his dog died. He remembers a shadowy figure asking him for help a long time ago. Nagai arrives at the hospital where his sister stays, asking about his dog. She asks whether he still talks to Kai, to which he tells her he hasn't seen him around. He remembers the memory of his mom deleting Kai's contact information from his phone. Nagai asks her whether she really doesn't remember what happened to their dog, wanting to learn more about the shadowy figure. As Nagai walks home, he's called out by his friends until he walks across the street, not checking both sides. After being run over to the driver's surprise, Nagai emerges unscathed, revealing he is an Ajin. Before we continue, let's take a moment to answer the question of the day. Are you reporting Nagai the moment you see he's an Ajin, or would you be willing to help him? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Now, back to the recap. Upon regenerating his injured parts, his once friends now decide to view him as a monster. The guy goes crazy after the thought of knowing he's not human, so he lets out a scream, freezing everyone around. Kai arrives at the crime scene and denies Nagai's existence, much like how he did before. Kai realizes that he needs to move fast in order to help his friend. Knowing that if he is caught, he will be experimented on, Nagai runs as far away from his home as he can. While scrolling through his phone to see who he can possibly ask for help, he remembers his childhood friend Kai. Knowing that he will support him, he calls Kai, asking what he should do. Hesitant to tell him his whereabouts, Nagai is reassured by Kai that he will help him. After waiting under the tree for Kai, Nagai is approached by a police officer revealing his location. In a heated chase, Nagai runs for his life while the police officer tries to capture him. The police officer doesn't hesitate this time and shoots him on sight. Sure that he has apprehended the Ajin, he approaches closer until he is knocked down by Kai. Kai offers Nagai a hand up and alerts him they need to move. The two hop on a bike and begin to flee the city, but have to avoid the police roadblocks. Arriving at his own house, the newsperson reports of Nagai's existence, revealing the 3rd Ajin in Japan. While he's on the run, the police are hard at work, looking all over the country for Nagai. He receives a call from someone who appears important, telling him to increase his search. Transitioning back to Kai and Nagai, they speed up a mountain, knowing if they are caught, they will be in prison for life. Episode 2. On the run, Kai and Nagai are on high alert, knowing they could be caught any moment. The government tests on the Ajin are similar to torture methods. If Nagai gets caught, he will be subjected to these tests for the rest of his life. Kai reassures Nagai that the police can't surround such a large area so quickly, and that they'll be okay. They decide to find a place to rest, so they can formulate their next plan. Still unsure of what he is, Nagai asks Kai if he's still human or not. At Nagai's house, there are multiple police vehicles and reporters. Alongside them, the head chief for dealing with Ajin appears. He introduces himself as as Tazaki and asks for the recent updates on Ajin. He offers the policeman a breath mint out of the blue in an attempt to ease the atmosphere. He tells the policeman he has prepared his own ammunition, being non-lethal tranquilizer bullets. The policeman questions the humanity of the use of tranquilizers, referring to hunting animals. Investigating the Ajin, the guy's sister is questioned whether she knew her brother was an Ajin or not. She doesn't snitch and tells the policeman she has no information regarding him. The guy asks Kai why he is helping him, knowing he's putting himself in danger. Kai asks why wouldn't he help, and the guy says because he's an Ajin. Kai says it interests him, knowing that there are only 48 in the world. As Kai and Nagai get back on their bike, a group of 2 men see them and decide to hunt them for the bounty. Nagai's previous friends tell each other if only they hunted Nagai, they could have gotten the bounty for themselves. Tazaki tells his assistant to make sure the police don't interfere with their hunt. The men who witnessed Nagai get back on the bike, chase after the 2, hoping to claim the bounty. Nagai tells Kai that he needs to go to the bathroom, even though it's not a good time. Kai stops for Nagai, giving the men in the van time to reach them. They sneak up on Nagai and strike him in the head with a bat, knocking him down to the ground. Kai notices him being attacked by the men and runs to save him. As they hold him down, they confirm he is the Ajin they are looking after and celebrate claiming the bounty. They decide to fight against him, thinking he is the Ajin's friend. Kai, being the great friend he is, fights the man with the bat and attempts to get to Nagai. Nagai questions why this has to happen to him, never doing anything wrong. He wishes that the people after him would just die, summoning the shadowy figure. Kai continues fighting the man with the bat until Nagai wakes back up. Nagai comes back to life and screams, freezing everyone in the vicinity in the process. While frozen, Nagai punches one of the men in the face, knocking him to the ground. He unfreezes Kai, and they get back on the bike and speed away. The men get back into their van and forget about the girl they kidnapped, knowing the bounty is more important. While Tazaki is talking to the policeman, he is alerted the man is done being questioned. When he leaves to go hear the results, he is asked if he's hiding something from the police. He leaves and claims that when he's on duty, they don't act human. Right when they thought they got away, the men from earlier get back on their tail. Kai continues to push his bike to the limit until the men decide to go all in and try to smash their bike. In the nick of time, they cross a railroad, making it right across before the train crosses. Right before he crosses the tracks, something takes hold of the man, preventing him from moving the car any faster. It's revealed to be the shadowy figure, repeating the same words that no guy once said. The train smashes into the train, causing everyone involved to perish. Kai wonders if there is more he can do, similar to how an Ajin does. Episode 3. Sitting on a chair, a man makes remarks about how the only special trait an Ajin has is the inability to die. He sits across an Ajin wrapped up, bloodstains everywhere, showing he has clearly been torturing this Ajin. 2 men filling up their gas tank think of what they would do if they capture the Ajin. As Kai travels with Nagai, they realize they have almost reached their hideout. Nagai remembers the situation he was in recently, knowing he needs to toughen up. While traversing the mountain, another biker passes them and stops. After confirming that Nagai is the Ajin, he speeds onto their tail, revealing his intentions. He identifies them as just children, sure that he can take them down. Still outside his house, police and reporters alike await as Tozaki talks to the mother. Nagai's mom tells them she never even thought that her son could be an Ajin. Tozaki asks for an update on the search, revealing the police still haven't got any leads. Tozaki questions whether the man helping Nagai would be doing it for anything but money. Right before he can leave, Tozaki spots the man who was torturing the Ajin from before. He instantly reports the whereabouts of this man, showing he is a force not to reckon with. The man leaves, clearly interested in Nagai, hoping to make him his next victim. Kai asks Nagai if he is able to use his scream and paralyze the biker. Nagai warns Kai he might hit him in the process, but decides to let his scream out anyways. Right before he does it, he tries to overpower but by force, but is knocked down instead. Nagai and Kai crash, while the man stands safe and prepares to claim his bounty. Guy struggles to get up, but gains his strength when he notices Kai down too. The man slams Nagai down and curses because he has no service. Nagai pleads with the man to call an ambulance to save Kai, but the man doesn't budge. He kicks Nagai, hoping to force him to comply with his demands. Nagai gets filled with anger, but is surprised to see Kai get up and beat up the biker. Kai reveals he was just pretending to be injured and offers a hand to Nagai. Nagai tells Kai he has a broken leg and says this is the end for him, urging Kai to run and save himself. Kai tells Nagai that he still sees him as a human still, so he won't leave him. He looks for a way to treat Nagai's broken leg. Nagai decides to find out some of the extent of his abilities, so he slices his head. With the injury being exposed, Nagai is healed in the process, making him ready to depart. The Ajin torturer is introduced as Mr. Sato, and he prepares to embark on a mission to hunt down Nagai. He proposes this idea to his companion Tanaka, a burly-looking man. Nagai having arrived at the shelter, Kai was taking him to look at himself in the mirror, questioning if he is human or not. He tells Kai he is more worried about him rather than himself, knowing that Kai is human. The guy smashes his phone, knowing that the police may use it as a way to track him down. Kai tells Nagai that they will have to go into a city, eventually knowing they will run out of food eventually. Nagai tells Kai he will disappear in the mountains and live a quiet, normal life. He wishes to go back to his old life, knowing he did nothing wrong. Kai urges him to come and visit his grandfather with him, knowing he will help them out. To gather supplies, Kai leaves Nagai and goes to the store. Tonzaki talks with his assistant, knowing they have no leads on Nagai. He gives a card to her and tells her to question the name written on the paper. Nagai says he doesn't believe that his grandfather would just accept an Ajin in his house. He knows if he continues on with Kai, it will slowly ruin his life. While he is talking to himself, a mysterious shadowy figure approaches. Tonzaki's assistant arrives at the hospital Nagai's sister stays and begins to question her. She asks why they are asking her so many questions, knowing she can't give them answers. Nagai's sister calls him gross, knowing that there was someone not human in her family. The assistant tells her she only wants to help the Ajins, knowing that they are subjected to torture. The assistant asks again if she can tell her anything regarding Nagai. He finally opens up and reveals a memory she had of Nagai telling a ghost to leave them alone. Upon telling her the story, the assistant asks her if it was a black ghost. Nagai's sister tells her she has no idea what the ghost looks like. While talking, Nagai's sister remembers Kai, thinking he might be the accomplice. Right before she tells her anything, the assistant is pierced by an unknown force and dies. The ghost continues to kill the other two officers guarding the door, leaving the walls covered in blood. Nagai's sister pants, frantically knowing she might be next. We then witness Tanaka, the companion of Mr. Sato, with his hands in his eyes, revealing he was controlling the ghost. Episode 4. Mr. Soto asks Tanaka if he likes video games, observing him play one. He asks him what would happen if he used a second life, referring to the black ghost figure. Having pierced Tonzaki's assistant should be dead. However, she reveals herself as an Ajin as well. She reveals her own black ghost, which fends off Tanaka's. Tanaka panics, having never fought another ghost before, but doesn't hesitate to strike first. The assistant, also having never fought one herself, is unsure of how to defeat Tanaka. The ghosts continue fighting while she dodges to the side. She lands a hit on Tanaka's ghost. It is not regenerating like the assistant's it falls. After waking up, Tanaka realizes the head is the weak point for the ghost. He is happy to know the weakness if he ever has to fight another Ajin again. The assistant is glad that she was able to protect the girl, but when she turns around, she sees she fled. Tonzaki informs his scientists about the dangers and abilities of the Ajin. The group asks what the Ajin voice attack is and how it paralyzes people. One of the scientists refers to a beetle who has a similar effect, paralyzing anyone it stings. Tonzaki tells them that's not their priority currently. They should focus on the capture of the Ajin. Revealed is Mr. Sato and Tanaka, alongside Naragi's sister. It appears that the attack on the assistant was a distraction to kidnap her. Mr. Sato introduces himself to Naragi's sister as a member of the Ajin Rehabilitation Committee. This card was actually the assistant's card that she dropped, and he asks her about her brother. She asks him whether he will truly help her find her brother, to which he agrees. Having seen the card, she trusts him and decides to lead him to her brother. Nagari still is unsure what to do next, and whether he should leave Kai. He knows that staying in the mountain forever is not an option, so thinks of his solutions. He thinks maybe contacting another Ajin would help him find out what to do. Nagari welcomes Kai back home, thanking him for the supplies in the process. Kai heads to sleep, having just ventured out and gotten supplies. Nagari thanks Kai and thinks about running away, so he stays safe. Nagari asks Mr. Sato again if he really will help her brother, and he promises he will. She reveals her memory of her mom telling Nagari to separate from Kai as a child. Mr. Sato asks if there is anything else she can tell him to further his investigation. With all the information taken from her, Mr. Sato orders Tanaka to dispose of her. On the contrary, Nagari finds himself questioning even his closest friend Kai, stealing his phone. After stealing it, he ventures further into the woods, knowing he needs to be away from Kai. While walking, he receives a call from his sister, but decides not to answer it. Mr. Sato, in possession of her phone, leaves a voice message for him, drawing his attention. Upon realizing that he has his sister, he decides to leave in hopes of saving her. Nagari steals the bike, but after running out of gas, is forced to walk the rest of the way. With no water, and not having eaten a decent meal in days, he barely makes it to Mr. Sato. Tonzaki's assistant reports to him that Eriko, Nagami's sister, was kidnapped. Tonzaki shows little interest in Eriko and questions how the battle between their ghosts went. Nagai walks up the steps cautiously, knowing that the men before him are fellow Ajin. Upon arriving, Tanaka pulls out a knife and stabs Mr. Sato, forcing him to the ground. While Nagai is meeting with fellow Ajin, Kai awakes unaware of the situation. He runs through the forest in search of him. With no phone, he has no way to contact anyone. Kai remembers a memory he had with Eriko, wishing things went back to how they were. Mr. Sato stands back up, confirming that he is an Ajin. Nagai recognizes the other Ajin, Tanaka, him being someone who was caught and on the news. Nagai decides before he proceeds and works with them, he has some questions. First, he asks what Mr. Sato did with his sister and why he kidnapped her. Mr. Sato apologizes and says it was the only way he would be able to reach Nagari. Nagari accepts his apology and proceeds to ask his second question. He asks Mr. Sato how he learned about his existence, how he found his sister. Mr. Sato tells him that they live quietly and don't make scenes, and says he found him from all the news. Nagai tells Mr. Sato that he doesn't see him as an enemy, that he wants to live a peaceful live as well. Mr. Sato tells Nagai that he understands his feelings and that he will protect him. Tells him to make sure he never gets caught, knowing he will be tortured if he does. Before he can answer his final question, Nagai is hit by a tranquilizer. Mr. Sato tells Tanaka that he didn't pass the test and that he must be educated. Episode 5. Revealing who shot the tranquilizer bullets, the police emerge and surround the three. They investigate the scene, eventually stumbling upon Tanzaki. The policeman tells his people to search the scene, more knowing they could still be in the area. Tanzaki tells them they would all be dead if they were still there. He tells his people that Nagai is now with Mr. Sato. The man he reported to tells his secretary not to let information spread out about it. Tanaka apologizes to Mr. Sato for missing the first shot, telling him he needs to practice his aim while using the ghost. He assures Tanaka that he is a big help and not to worry. Nagai awakes, wrapped up and put in front of bright lights. He awakes, wrapped in bandages in a room full of doctors, ready to dissect him to further their research. They confirm his blood matches that of the blood found at the truck accident and being on him. They start by cutting his body open and taking his limbs apart, one by one. They tell each other to start counting how many times he has died in order to see his control over the pain. Nagai spawns in his black ghost, unable to bear the torture. The doctors notice a large scratch on the wall, suspecting something might be up. Tanzaki and the others stand behind the glass and watch silently. They tell the doctors to up the amount of pain to see if the black ghost reacts to the pain. Tanzaki's assistant informs him of what the ghost is doing, her being an Ajin and able to see them. She tells him that it's staring directly at him, sending chills down Tanzaki's spine. He tells his assistant to always stay loyal to him and do her work correctly, or she will end up like Nagai. The doctors decide to take a break, saying they have made a lot of progress today. Nagai awakes and sees Tanaka, telling him he doesn't want to be like him, always on the run, killing people and living a quiet life. Tanaka tells him he has nothing ahead of him but hell, his karma for trying to look cool. The doctor experimenting on Nagai is then attacked by his ghost. While Tanaka urges him to kill the doctor, Nagai lays on the ground crying. He knows that once he kills the first, he won't be human anymore. Tanaka tells him that he's afraid of his destiny, now being an Ajin. Nagai continues to cry and question why it had to be him. He says if he doesn't take action, then he won't ever be able to apologize to Kai. After this, the doctors pull out a drill and begin experimenting on his teeth. Mr. Sato meets with the man and exchanges goods with him. Mr. Sato leaves without having to show the contents of the package, showing how much the man trusts him. It is revealed that within the box are 10 hearts, livers, and various body parts. The reporters are now outside of the facility where Nagari is stored, reporting the latest updates on him. While they are oblivious, Mr. Sato and Tanaka attempt to break into the facility to save Nagai. Tanaka questions how they will overpower the government when he is reminded by Mr. Sato they are immortal. The scientists who have a front row of the experiments watch as the reporters talk. Suddenly, they are alerted that there are 2 men trying to invade and break Nagai out. Mr. Sato calls out Tanzaki on a security camera and tells him there will be a drastic change in the Ajin world today. The people ask what Mr. Sato meant, to which Tanzaki can't answer. One of the men at the table questions why Tanzaki didn't kill Tanaka the first time they had him captured. He then tells him to remember an incident in the past when they tried. Mr. Sato charges into the facility, shooting himself anytime he is injured, causing him to fully regenerate. He fakes his death and tricks the guards into letting him get some free shots. He talks of how easy that was and ventures on to save Nagai. One of the men asks Tanzaki who Mr. Sato is and what his relationship is with him. They question why he didn't use his ghost, knowing that would have made his fight easier. Another man enters the room and begins to question the ghosts further. They ask if there really is no way to detect them and tell them what the ghosts are made out of. Mr. Sato finally arrives where Nagai is and decides to wake him up by stabbing him. Right before this, he remembers the moment when he saved Tanaka. He wakes him up and tells him he has come to rescue him. Nagai asks how long he has been kept captive, to which Mr. Sato tells him it's been 10 days. Much like how Tanaka reacted when being saved, Nagai starts crying. Nagai apologizes to Mr. Sato for causing so much trouble for him. After hearing this, Mr. Sato clenches his knife and says that his mission was a failure despite him saving Nagai. For a moment. Episode 6. Mr. Sato reveals that the reason he handed over Nagai is so that he can embed a hatred upon humans. He asks Nagai if seeing all of the dead humans bothers him. Nagai asks him to. Having just been tortured, he hates being inside of this. Mr. Sato recognizes that Nagai is him never showing much emotion to things even like his sisters. Mr. Sato barges open another door to reveal 3 doctors with hands up surrendering themselves. Mr. Sato continues to try and kill the but Nagai stops him and asks him not to harm. Mr. Sato calls Nagai a failure, him being unwilling to kill him. Mr. Sato becomes enraged by telling Nagai he will kill him alongside the doctor. The man who was explaining what the ghosts were made of refers to glass, saying it's mostly translucent but not complete, while the ghost... He asks one of the men at the table if he really is happy for his accomplishments of Tonzaki's assistant asks him if she should go out and help, her secretly being an... Mr. Sato gets back, suffering no damage from the bullets that Nagai... The doctors blame Nagai for the whole situation, saying he's the one who brought Mr. The doctor suggests that Nagai sacrifice him, being that he can't die. Nagai agrees and tells them to put a good word in for him if he gets captured. Mr. Sato continues searching the area and assures Nagai that he can kill an Ajin. He explains that he will be and then make him watch himself reject. He strikes fear into Nagai as he continues to search the... The doctors tell Nagai that he doesn't need to... Hearing what Mr. Sato plans to do, Mr. Sato sees him and thinks he has the upper, but is surprisingly attacked by Nagai. However, Mr. Sato reads Nagai's movements and stabs him in the... The doctors flee and leave Nagai to be tortured by Mr. Mr. Sato attempts to cut into Nagai's, but is stopped by a shadowy... He questions why there is so much mass and takes a step back. He calls his shadow ordinary despite the size and is forced to the ground. Nagai's shadow completely overpowers Mr. But unlike most, he is able to move and attack out of its own free. Having escaped Mr. Sato thanks to his... He attempts to escape from the government's... Going back to the doctors during their... One decided to hide inside of a room rather than leave the... Mr. Sato seems to take notice of this as he is passing the... So he sends in his ghost to take care of... He controls it while walking towards and kills the innocent. Nagai makes it to the rooftop and meets with one of the doctors who assists him. The doctor offers to help, feeling bad for all of the torture he put him. He tells Nagai that he told himself it was a job but can't take it. Nagai tells the doctor he has never worried for anyone and asks the doctor why he worries. Mr. Sato finally catches up to Nagai and fires multiple shots. Nagai notices that the doctor helping almost is lying on the ground, so he assumes he died from the cross. Knowing helping a dead man won't work, he runs across the roof, trying to... and taking shots from Mr. Having made it across, Nagai thinks he is in the clear, but hears the thought of the dead doctor call out. He rushes back, summoning his ghost in the process. Mr. Sato, the more experienced, summons his ghost as well and pushes Nagai's... Nagai's shadow reveals that he was only helping him because he seems low. During this, the doctor tells Nagai to run and save his own... He tells the doctor that he wants to... so he won't abandon. He sees some bushes and decides to try and drop him in. Tonzaki asks his fellow official how long they can dispatch the anti-Ajin for. He urges him now is their chance, and if they don't act, they may never find this many Ajin. Nagai tells the doctor to prepare himself, until the doctor asks him if he can see that. Nagai's ghost remembers what he said, and strikes Mr. Sato's ghost head. Having struck the ghost's head with his own, they shared memories for a moment, raising more questions regarding the ghosts. Nagai, having dropped the doctor, runs for his life to the port, thinking he might have a chance if he makes it there. While running, Mr. Sato throws his knife and impales Nagai in the process. Nagai falls into the river, hopefully making his escape.